Hey, Big Bad Burns, what did you do? Get a haircut or something?
Look again, Tin Can.
Oh, you're the biggest man in the world now, and you're a space marine.
For the Emperor.
Beg your gods for mercy, I have none.
Motherboard protocol activated.
So where do I start with Boltgun? It's not really a boomer shooter, and it's not really New Doom or whatever Doom 2016 was. It's kind of a mix of the two, having a bit of both their DNAs. We are a Space Marine, pretty much a 7-foot tall gore maker that has been launched to this planet to purge everything on it. That's really all you need to know about the story. In fact, I don't really think there's much else to the story. At least that's all I'm going to cover of the story. Sorry, 40k fans. Boltgun was released in 2023 and was developed by Urrock Digital. I hadn't heard of them until Boltgun, but a lot of their titles seem to be small indie games. Definitely no FPSs, and that is a testament to the studio because this is a really good first start with that. Like, this game is outstanding for a first dip of their toes into FPSs. So I played Boltgun on Exterminatus, which is the hardest difficulty you can play on. And spoilers, it wasn't really that hard, although it didn't really matter that it wasn't hard, and we'll talk a bit about that later. To my understanding, the only differences between the difficulties is enemy placement, instead of like artificial difficulty, wherein the enemies will be spongier and they'll probably do more damage than me, which is perfect for this kind of game. Instead of having this blanket setting for all enemies across the game, you have a person there behind it, placing the enemies and making the game harder in a intelligent manner. I did see some people complaining online that the medium difficulty was actually really hard and people were getting stuck like on the first boss or the first kind of tougher enemies. I do think the difficulty on the lower settings is meant for 40k fans, whereas the harder difficulties are meant for maybe FPS veterans, but that's just my opinion. Sorry again, 40k fans. Right off the bat with a menu screen, just the design, the music, the atmosphere, it's so nostalgic of Doom, Duke Nukem, Blood, that feeling that you're really in for a big treat, and baby, this game does not disappoint. So when you first start, you only have the chainsaw, no guns. This is a really good way to introduce the chainsaw because you're forced to use it, and it is a really important part of the arsenal throughout the game. Like, you can use it to get closer to the enemies, and it stun locks them, assuming that they've been damaged already. So it's really good that it starts off like this, but it's not a hindrance to have to use a chainsaw because these weaker enemies die right away. It just really cements right away that you're this badass and this giant hulking maniac. And don't get me wrong, just because you're this big guy doesn't mean that you're slow. You move so fast, and it just makes the gameplay so much better instead of being like really slow and sluggish throughout the game. And I haven't even mentioned the level design yet. These big open snowy mountains don't usually get environments like this in a boomer shooter, so it's a wee bit more of that New Doom coming in, but with the art style it just looks so good, and it's such a nice space to start the game. Eventually we do get the Boltgun, and unlike other games like this isn't a pistol, this isn't just a starter weapon. That gets thrown away when you get the next weapon. This gun slaps. This is the gun that the game is named after, so it has to be good. If this was a crap weapon, then it'd be a pretty dumb move of the developers. You use it all the way throughout the game. There's a ton of upgrades for it. It is 100% one of my favorite starting weapons in any FPS, and it just tears through these low level enemies like a hot knife through butter. Speaking of low level enemies, you'll notice that my gun and the enemies do have levels. This isn't some tacked on RPG element, it's just a quick and easy way to show the player what guns are going to be most effective against every enemy type. Say you use a level 5 gun but the level of the enemy is 7, you're going to be doing less damage, whereas a level 7 gun against a level 3 enemy, it's just going to tear right through them. It's just a wee handy guide instead of you having to work out for yourself which guns are useful against what enemies. It is a good idea while you're ripping and tearing through these low level enemies to give them a taunt once in a while. It doesn't actually do anything, but it's good to let them know that they're about to be turned into a blood mist. So at the end of the first mission we have an homage to the original Doom and Doom 2. It even has the same secret over here. Oh, what's this? The like, comment, and subscribe power up? Amazing. Wow. Now that we're armed with the Boltgun and we finished off the first mission, which was just killing low level enemies, we get into the second mission where we start encountering Chaos Marines, which should be an actual threat. But see, if you just keep moving, you just still feel like this unstoppable force. It's almost like a symbiotic relationship with the game, whereas if you were to stop, you will die, but if you keep moving and keep killing, you'll stay alive. And this continues throughout the game. As long as you know what you're going up against and you keep moving, you do become this unstoppable force, and it does feel really good. We get the shotgun here. This shotgun's okay. I mean, it's good. Like, if you put it in any other game, it would be the best weapon in the game. Unfortunately for the shotgun, the arsenal in this game is an all-star cast. Like, everything is better than it, more or less, which is a shame because it is good, sort of. It just doesn't really give the feedback that the other weapons give. Like, just with a bolt gun alone, when you're firing it, you just feel like you really are firing a gun that's just this killing machine, whereas a shotgun just it kind of falls flat in that regard. The more you progress throughout the game, the more painfully obvious it becomes that this game has a lot of inspiration from Doom 2016, in the sense of you run for their corridor, you get there in an arena, you get through the arena, you get the corridor, and the arenas are just kind of, prison rules, kill the biggest, baddest guy in there, and you get to move on. And don't get me wrong, Doom 2016 is a great game, and this does an absolutely fantastic job of adapting that formula. It's just the game does represent itself a wee bit as a boomer shooter when it doesn't have as much of that DNA as it does of the new Dooms. Like, old school boomer shooters will have like monster closets and enemies to ambush you, whereas in this they just kind of spawn in. There's no kind of surprise. You understand the formula eventually and you know what they expect and when enemies are going to appear, so it takes away a bit of that nuance that the boomer shooters would have. Speaking of the arenas, I do want to say that I was rarely disappointed with them. They're often these huge, gorgeously designed arenas that a lot of the time I actually stood in awe looking at them, and they're really fun to move around in. They're just really well designed, and it does help to break up the monotony of some of the corridors in between. You step into a lot of the new missions and the atmosphere just feels really great. Like, some of them even feel a bit spooky. Like, I'm not saying there's jump scares or anything in the game, but you sometimes feel like maybe there's a presence watching you or something like that. There is a good pile of power-ups throughout the game, most notably for the bolt gun, although these are temporary, such as a faster fire rate or dragon fire bullets. But one of the biggest and more interesting power-ups is the machine spirit. This will upgrade any gun you're holding to a more powerful version of itself, at least for the rest of the level. I tended to use it on the plasma gun, which is the stand-in for the rocket launcher, and when you fire it, after a few shots it starts to overheat and damages you, whereas when you have the machine spirit, it doesn't damage you anymore and it increases the fire rate, so it's just good for destroying really high level enemies really quickly, such as the Terminators or the Exalted Flamers. Now, I do think that some people online prefer other weapons, but for me personally, I really liked the plasma guns upgrade. Speaking of harder enemies, I fucking hate the aspiring champions. Don't get me wrong, I didn't die that many times, but I'd say the half of my total amount of deaths were attributed to the fucking champions. They'll just come running at you like a train out of nowhere and they'll chop off half of your health before you even know what's happening. And the worst part is, if they do damage you and you don't turn them into jibs immediately, they just come back to life and you have to do it all over again. Like, these pink horrors will spawn 2 blue horrors when they're killed if you don't do the same thing, but they're not really a nuisance at all, whereas the aspiring champions are actually viable threats by themselves. So getting near to the end of chapter 1, we encounter our first boss, the Lord of Change. I don't know anything about 40k. I don't know who this guy is, but all I know is that he hits like a truck. Like, this dude just has to look at you and you catch fire and it takes off most of your health every time. But I will say, like, this is an excellent boss fight for a boomer shooter. You just chip away at the boss's health as much as you can. It's an actual very viable threat. You got loads of little enemies around you to distract you. It's just a really good boss fight. And they continue to appear several times throughout the game, and I don't think there was a single boss fight throughout the game that I actually didn't enjoy. So well done on the boss fights. 10 out of 10 boss fights. I feel like after this boss fight, the game takes off the kid gloves. Like, the game does get a lot harder after this point on. This is the end of chapter 1. So chapter 1 ends, chapter 2 begins, and the difficulty drops down a little bit, but it quickly gets back to what the end of chapter 1 delivers, and continues to ramp up difficulty for the rest of the game. So after some MC Escher inspired shenanigans, we get to the nerd sorcerer boss fight. This is quite an easy boss fight once you find the overkill, because he just kind of melts. But we haven't seen the last of him, and he is going to be more difficult in the future, as he kind of bookmarks each chapter. At the start of chapter 2, we lose all our weapons, as is boomer shooter tradition, well, except the Boltgun. And it really is all you need. They might as well give me a nuke launcher because the Boltgun is just this force of nature all on its own. So we're out of the snowy mountains and then into the desert. I'm not a huge fan of desert levels because they're just kind of boring. I mean, deserts, there's nothing really in them apart from a few cactuses and canyons and stuff. The only game I really like that has good deserts is Kenshi. I don't mind them here, but you know, I kind of preferred the snowy mountains. A little bit later on in the chapter, I get the melted gun, which is just another great addition to this game's arsenal. And it's the answer to every question. Terminator, melt a gun. Bloat drone, melt a gun. Aspiring champion, melt a gun. It's like the Doom super shotgun if it shot out molten slag. Eventually I fight a great unclean one, which kind of reminds me of the Cyber Demon fight from Doom 2016. I think it might be the arc attack that it does. It just reminded me of it, but whatever. Again, the same as the Lord of Change fight. You're just fighting a lot of wee enemies while fighting the big enemy. Again, quite easy, but quite a lot of fun at the same time. Although mostly this was because I used a vortex grenade on him, which is basically a one-shot. And then this leads on to the second fight with the sorcerer. After beating him here, he goes onto my ship, which I think is a terrible idea on his part because that's my home turf. Like, that's where I'm going to really throw down. Like, you know, now we got to teach him a lesson. I'm not going to lie, the level design kind of falls off here once you get on the ship. Like, the other missions were kind of big open areas, you know, snowy mountains, canyon, deserts. This is on a ship. It's all corridors with the occasional lava pool in it. It's not really all that interesting. Don't get me wrong. Like, there is this multi-layer platform area where you have to get keys from different side areas, ending in a boss fight, and this other room is continuously filling with lava. With all that being said, the difficulty does ramp up a lot here. Like, every arena feels like you really earn something by finishing it, and you do have to be a bit more cautious. But the game has always been and continues to be quite generous with the amount of health and armor that it gives you, so you're never really in this dire need for them. There isn't a whole lot more to say about the third chapter and thus the game, and I'm kind of glad it's almost over. It's not that it's not fun, but I think if there was a fourth chapter, it would start to outstay its welcome. Like, it has been outstanding, don't get me wrong, and it does leave you wanting just a little bit more, but I think it's good that they didn't give it to you. And there is a DLC, which I haven't tried in this video, but I imagine with it adding weapons, etc., that it would be that little bit extra that you're looking for in a different way. So the only thing I really want to talk about now is the grav gun, which is kind of like the last big weapon you get. If you walk into your room and you want everything to be dead as soon as possible, you whip out the grav. You don't really get to use it a lot, but when you do, it feels glorious. And before long, you're in the mandatory stock up and all your guns and ammo room just before the last boss fight, and we're facing off against the sorcerer one last time. This whole fight kind of acts like a boss rush. First you fight the sorcerer, then you fight a great unclean one, then you fight the sorcerer again, then you fight a Lord of Change, and then finally you fight the sorcerer one more time. It's kind of tough, you know, there's loads of wee enemies running around, and it's kind of just a hectic one last stand at the very end of the game, and it's a great fight. I decide to finish him off by whacking his head off with a chainsaw. So after relieving the sorcerer's head from his shoulders, your mission is complete. So that's it, job well done. You went on that planet, you killed thousands of heretics, and what do you get for your reward? You get told to get back to work. You know what? That's pretty on point. Like, I suppose I'm on minimum wage as well. Overall, I really enjoyed Boltgun. It's got like this nice blend of new and old smashed together, and I really enjoyed you can't just go on this all-out killing frenzy without any story whatsoever. Well, more or less. I personally didn't feel like it was much of a challenge. I played on the hardest difficulty. I understand why the devs would have done this. You know, they want to appeal to the 40k fans just as much as the FPS fans. Despite the kind of lax difficulty, the game makes up for it in the gameplay, which is really stellar. I really hope that we continue to see this trend with smaller developers making these really high quality indie games instead of what we're getting with AAA studios these days where they're just trying to pump out something quickly to make a profit. These smaller indie games, they have a whole lot more heart in them and a lot more dedication, delivering a much higher quality game than a lot of the AAA studios.